Good morning and welcome to another ironic introduction to another video. This video is immediately following my mastery build setup as I went through my masteries for where I am up to date and the fact that I am gated I feel for quite a while and will be running roughly these masteries for the foreseeable future. That said, I do touch on why I think Limber as well as Stupefy are like mandatory / virtually necessary in Alliance War, and that is because of the value of parry. So first off, I think that you should max out parry, and the reason for that is because when you max it out, it goes from being a 1.5 second stun to a 2 second stun. Let me pull up a calculator really quick. Now, at a 2 second stun, if someone is going into your defense, and let me be clear that I think that as far as priorities go, you should prioritize Stupefy followed by Limber. But Limber doesn't require unlocking, so if you don't have the ability to unlock Stupefy, unlock Limber and max it out first. But if you were walking into someone with Limber and you have parry maxed out, and your 2 second debuff is actually only 1.04 seconds, and taking what I would say is a generous reaction speed as a player, which would be 0.4 seconds, if you land a parry, you would then only have 0.6 seconds to land a heavy attack. So that would be accounting for the amount of time it would take you to react in order to put the input in for a heavy attack, followed by the amount of animation time it would take for your character to actually implement said heavy attack. And some champions have longer heavy attack animations. One example is Omega Red. He pulls his chains down and then you have to pull them up, and it feels much slower than a lot of other champions. And in general, I do believe that at 1.04 seconds, the heavy attack window is very, very difficult. I was going to say nigh impossible, but I'm sure it's possible, and I'm just not a good enough player to do it. But for some champions, I believe it might actually be impossible. It might actually be outside the range of reasonable, like, even like pro level reaction speed. The amount of time spent on the animation is just too great, and the other champion will just react quicker. And this is assuming they're not even on a node that is reducing the amount of stun as well. So just at the 48% reduction. So that being said, when you run Limber on Alliance War Defense, you are essentially saying to the opponent, if you parry me, you can't heavy attack. Now, 1 second is plenty of time to get a medium attack or a light attack in. It's just when it comes to heavy attacks. Now, the reason this is so important is there are a series of champions where their entire utility or a great deal of their strength as a champion comes from heavy attacks. Stark Spidey, he has a power reduction when he does a heavy attack. You have Iron Man Infinity War, who inflicts armor debuffs, Call Obsidian, who inflicts armor breaks. You have Omega Red, who inflicts degeneration, just to name a few champions who it's incredibly important that you get this stun off as well as have the time to get a heavy attack in, because that's a large part of their kit. Now, that being said, with Limber, totally neutralize that and you put them in a really bad spot. Now, you only do that if they don't have 3 points in Stupefy. Now, granted, so we said 1.04 seconds. So if you say you take your additional half a second, so you go up to 2.5 seconds base, and you reduce the amount from Limber, you would then have 1.3 seconds. Now, 1.3 seconds is still not a grandiose amount of time, but after subtracting the 0.4 seconds for like what I would say is a relatively generous average reaction speed, you would still have nearly a second to get a heavy attack animation inputted as well as used. And I have found in Alliance War, with a faster than average reaction speed, I can consistently parry into heavy attack. It does require trusting that I got my parry and moving straight for a heavy attack, but it lands consistently, and so that's what Stupefy grants you. Now, if they aren't running Limber, what Stupefy grants you is a window of time to just sit there and wait and slow play the fight, and there are a number of champions who would benefit from waiting out the stun timer and or getting like a medium attack followed by a heavy attack in, and as you get used to running into Limber and determining like the timer on like the debuff screen when you're looking at your fight, you will be better at like mentally noticing, okay, I can get a heavy attack, I can get a medium attack and then a heavy attack in there, or I can get a light attack and then a heavy attack in there. So you can really maximize your stun, because the stun doesn't break just because you hit them. It's a set time. And so that being said, those are the reasons why I think those are so important. I might be missing some things, as well as like touch up on the math. I do base my math as far as the stun duration goes based on the assumption that it is 2 seconds from the parry plus half a second from Stupefy and then reduced by Limber. But it is potentially possible that it is 2 seconds from parry reduced by Limber, and then an extra half second from Stupefy, which would instead be 1.54 seconds instead of 1.3. But I do believe it's the 1.3, as it does feel a little bit longer than, it does feel a little bit slower than 1.5 seconds, I believe. I just haven't taken the time, to like play it in slow motion, go frame by frame. If you have and you can confirm which way it is, I would appreciate it just for like my own mental sanity. I just don't care enough to do the research. But that said, if you disagree, feel free to let me know why. But in my experience, I think these nodes in particular have the most impact in Alliance War. They have impact outside of Alliance War. They're definitely great when you're questing, etc., or if you're running into champions who have, like, if you happen to be on a Limber node in a quest or have some form of debuff reduction like Rogue. These are helpful in those instances. I just think that in those instances you would instead be intercepting anyways, and so they're not as reliably great. That said, I think I've taken this longer than I wanted. I might have more arguments. I apologize if I didn't get them all in here, but I will talk to you later.